Let's get to the first story. Observe irregular system behavior or error messages. Submit a report. TL divided by Doctor at the bottom. I've been working for a non-IT service provider within critical infrastructure for some years now. My job can be characterized as 90% boredom monitoring a group of about 40 systems that are, fortunately, quite reliable, 9% routine maintenance, and 1% sheer frigging hell when something goes seriously wrong and suddenly you have to fix a serious problem as fast as possible without affecting other systems negatively, with users and supervisors breathing down your neck as if that would make it any faster or better. Any malfunction or error reported by any of the systems has to be documented within a special reporting system, both for documentation purposes and to create tickets for e.g. the developers, product owners that they might have a problem. Every entry within this reporting system creates a paper trail, electron trail, and automatically generates emails to the respective product owners, etc. One of our systems, originally built by a huge US defense contractor we'll call Beam from the Heavens, is a UTOSUCK obviously. The supplier calls it something else. AutoSuck tends to generate error reports, as do most software products. But for some of those software errors, the logging level apparently has been set to a ridiculous level like developer++. Therefore, we get messages e.g. stating that the number of mouse button click events for a certain machine does not correspond properly to the number of mouse button release events. And so on, really important stuff, right? Those messages tend to basically flood our monitoring system to the tune of 100 seconds per hour. It's always been that way. In the beginning, we reported those AUTOSUCK messages as erroneous error reports but were basically told to go away. The system works as designed, intended for the users, and we tech monkeys should be able to handle the odd superfluous message once in a while, as long as it's neither relevant for safety or system capacity. Priority for such things is set to 255 times 0 equals immediately. Anything higher than 10 equals maybe by the year 3000. So this was the unhappy state of affairs. Last year's audit brought a finding that we, my colleagues, and I were not documenting errors the way we were supposed to. Really, my boss, nice guy, by the way, had to tell us to get our act together or else. Cue malicious compliance. From the beginning of the next shift, error documentation became especially my first priority. So unless something went seriously wrong, we'd spend all the shift writing error reports, politely declining any user's request for support with a wink. They knew what we were doing and wholeheartedly supported us. But just writing these reports manually was not enough, as manual reports would take a few minutes each, so using the interface provided and a nifty little shell script we are tech support. After all, we soon automated the error report generation. Take log file for the previous hour, run it through the script to generate one entry per the error message. Using the original timestamp, error description, and working position from the log file, fill in error should not occur on the expected system behavior field and set all the static fields who is reporting which system to their respective values. Bam! 3,000 error reports per day. It didn't take long for the devs and product owners to see the error of their ways. IRC next working day we were promised a fix for those erroneous error messages with the next software patch 6 months away. And they delivered. And they even asked ever so nicely if there was anything else we'd like included in that software patch. Apropos nothing whatsoever, we usually get to test new software patches earlier than any other site now, as we apply the same reporting to any pre-deployment testing. TL divided by Doctor, management made us write reports on every occurrence of system errors, neither taking into account the number of error messages nor the engineer's approach in automating said reports from the log files. And now to the second story. My A's tried to punish me for filing a First Amendment lawsuit against them. I used it to get into my dream college. Throwaway because it'll be easy to find my real identity. In 2008 I was involved in a federal lawsuit when my rural Texas high school tried to suspend me for wearing a shirt supporting then Democratic hopeful John Edwards. Hindsight is 20/20. They said it was a violation of the dress code, which was only ever selectively enforced. My parents had my back and agreed that it was, to quote my very white dad, redneck cracker nonsense. I'll never forget during the initial meeting when my principal called in a school board member. He said that if I got suspended I would probably get kicked off the football team, and that could hurt me getting into college. It didn't matter, I was a miserable player and a smart kid, so it wasn't gonna be what took me to college. But the slimy fake concern as he tried to leverage my future against my speech is something I'll never forget. Anyway, as the case goes on, the squeeze gets tighter. First, they have the football coaches try to get me to drop it, having the football coach talk about how my selfishness means that they can't wear Fellowship of Christian Athletes shirts anymore, trying to embarrass me in front of the team. I'm a fat kid who openly plays Magic the Gathering in high school. Hit me with your best shot, I have no shame. Next, they host a meeting with all the teachers telling them I'm a problem, and that they need to keep an eye on me in case I slip up. I found this out years after the fact when I bumped into my English teacher at a friend's wedding. Finally, they just start pulling in students from my classes to get them to say bad stuff about me. I was a class clown, so this turns into every single dirty joke, rude comment, or loud fart I ever made getting reported to school administration. This then leads to this awful little toady vice principal calling me and my parents in and reading them back in front of my mother. That one stung. My parents still knew it was bullshit, but who wants their locker room jokes aired in front of their mom? They used this as a pretext to expel me for 6 weeks, citing inappropriate sexual conduct. They shoved me into the disciplinary alternative education program. And I am fucking steaming. The program is basically where they warehouse kids with emotional problems they can't handle. You just sit in a room in a refurbished insane asylum and can't do anything but read or use the computer for monitored educational purposes. You also get booted from extracurriculars while you're in there. I know at this point they want me to make a scene so they can punish me further. So I do the exact opposite. I channel all my rage and new free time into my schoolwork, doing homework I would usually ignore because I knew I could ace the test. Now I'm doing both and my GPA is climbing. I start looking into scholarships and find a bunch that is really interested in political activism. And guess who now knows a little bit about that? I apply and rip my school a new asshole and everyone. Then I work with my dad and we find an attorney who will take our case pro bono. Which means while the school bleeds fees, it doesn't cost us anything to keep it in court. I spent those weeks like a monk, motivated entirely by spite, doing everything I could to make their bullshit work for me. I got out, got back on all my teams, and ended up applying for a prestigious honors program at my dream school. Not only did I get in, but I got way more financial support than I thought I would. Eventually, we lost the case, but the school had to abolish the dress code anyway because they couldn't afford to get sued over it again. I don't like the idea that a school lost money, but man, they made the choice. They could have backed down whenever. Now I've graduated law school, am taking the bar into weeks, and already have a job investigating government corruption. I'm getting paid to be a pain in the ass of petty authority, and it's pretty sweet. And on to the third story. My boss used me for MC 5 years ago, and I just figured it out. Edit, MC stands for Malicious Compliance. This has nothing to do with Minecraft. The story starts now. About 5 years ago, I was the office guy for a small lumber mill. My direct supervisor was the general manager, but the owner was also pretty hands-on. The mill wasn't generating as much profit as the owner believed it could. He was probably right. The guy was smart as a whip with 60+ years of experience. One of the things the owner tried to do was hire an outside consultant to try and find ways we could safely increase productivity or cut expenses. The guy had owned and operated his own mill and also had a ludicrous amount of experience. One of the things the consultant had been pushing for was running the mill into overtime. He thought we could increase productivity without incurring more expense than we gained. My boss asked me to run an analysis of how much we would lose if we ran overtime. I did the math and gave him the results. Even in the best case, every minute of overtime would result in a net loss to the company. This report had taken me several hours as I wanted to be sure I gave him the right answer. My boss took it, nodded, and the next day announced we would be running the mill in overtime. 2 weeks later, when I prepared the end-of-month financial statements, it showed a large loss. I was quietly seething since I felt like I had been asked a pointless question. My time wasted and my input ignored. But looking back on it with significantly more experience, I think I know what happened. I think my boss was bothered by the consultant who had come in to tell him how to do his job and then given him bad advice. The owner wouldn't listen to my boss telling him he didn't need a consultant. So he did exactly what the consultant suggested and let the owner judge for himself. As far as my report went, I think he just wanted to be sure it wouldn't cost us too much when he pulled the trigger. Tom, if you're reading this, I'm sorry I was resentful about the whole affair for the past 5 years. My bad. TLDR, my boss needed a consultant off his back. So he had me check to see how much it would cost us to just follow his advice. We followed his advice, lost some money, and got rid of the consultant. And now to the fourth story. I took it all. My boyfriend and I broke up a few months ago, but there have been complications with the apartment because we are both on the lease. And blah blah blah. But I found a new place to live and moved out last weekend. I got the important stuff out, but there were still a few small boxes left and I didn't go through the kitchen because I didn't know what my new roommate had. My ex helped me move and everything was going very well, and we were being cordial. Well, last night, my ex asked me to come over to pick up a few of the small boxes that were in the closet, and to say hi to his dog who was sad that I was gone. So I go over there, we are hanging out. I play with his dog. Everything is good. Then I asked him if he minded if I took the dish brush, because my new house didn't have one. I asked because I bought this dish brush just a couple weeks ago. And I even splurged on a nicer one like $5 law. Side note, I am the only person in our relationship who bought household items like this. I just moved into a new place where the rent is higher. I've had to pay for a moving truck and all the other little things associated with moving somewhere new. The last thing I want to do is go to the store and drop another $50 or so buying a bunch of little things I literally just bought a couple weeks ago. Apparently asking for the dish brush triggered him, and he made the ridiculous dictate at 8 p.m. on Wednesday. Mind you that I could take anything that's mine tonight. But anything that was there when I left that night would be his property now. I, annoyed, said no, that I don't agree to this. I immediately said the dish brush was not a big deal. I told him that I did not come prepared with boxes, bags, etc. to get everything I wanted from the kitchen. I said I could do this tomorrow or any other day of his choosing. I begged him to compromise. I told him I wouldn't take the dish brush or anything that he said he wanted. However, he only tripled down and refused to budge from his ridiculous demand. So I became very irate. I told him that if he was going to make me move all my dishes out in plastic trash bags tonight, that I was going to take every last thing that was mine. Again, I am the only person who ever bought anything like pots, spices, utensils, cleaning supplies, etc. I was planning on leaving most of it with him because my new roommate already has a lot of this stuff. But I decided that if he was going to make such a ridiculous rule, then I would take it all. I took the dish brush, the sponges used and unused, all my spices, the soap, the utensils, all the pots, the Tupperware, the toothpicks, the toilet paper, the pillows, the wall hooks, the coat hangers. I even took the light bulbs. I took it all. Did I yell? Yes. Was I petty? Absolutely. But I think it is quite petty to make a demand on the spot that everything I don't take tonight becomes his when this was not the pretense under which I came over. And I was obviously not prepared. Let's get on to the fifth story, shall we? Tell me to drop the class if I don't like your rules. Okay, then you'll lose 5 students in your job. This happened years ago, but a post on here reminded me of it. So when I was a freshman in college, I registered for a basic English 100 course that doubled as a humanities credit. I thought great, 2 birds 1 stone despite the rate my professor for this class being abysmal at best. A few things to note, I have a DHD and dyslexia B's D's PS. And G's, so I have a hard time reading most times, but especially handwritten stuff. Even my own. It's also important to note that I had an ADA allowance on file, meaning I get some permissions to allow me to take classes and function as normally as possible. These permissions included the use of my tablet during class to write notes, and about an hour longer on tests. While the first day of class, the professor strolls in with the arrogance and solitude of someone who thinks they're getting tenured this year. He starts talking, going over the syllabus, and says there will be no phones, laptops, or technology of any kind in my class. You will write all your notes by hand, which isn't going to work for me. So I raise my hand and ask him if I can talk to him privately about the rule. That went over about as well as a lead balloon, and he starts getting snippy and says anything you need to talk with me about can be found in the syllabus. But again, I said that I needed to talk to him and that it was pretty important. Finally, he just says to say it to the class. He doesn't have time to take out to deal with the whining of any kind. Like, okay, dude. So I say that I'm dyslexic and need my tablet to do the notes and read the assignments, and that my ADA permissions are on file and emailed to all my professors before class. He says, yeah, I saw the email, but I don't care. You can do the work just like everyone else. You're not special even if you were in special ed. The class goes deadly quiet at that. I am absolutely shocked at his bold and completely hilarious lack of awareness and care for his job. I'm staring at him open-mouthed and he thinks he's won. He's got this smug little face like I've just been told, and there are no other options, nor is there any way he'll regret his behavior. One of the girls in class finally finds her voice and calls Hun out in his oblism and lack of decorum, but he cuts her off saying, if you don't like my rules, you can drop the class. So she says okay, and pulled out her laptop and dropped the class right in front of him. And taking the cue from her 3 other students, and I do the same, and we leave class together. At the same time, I've never met this girl before, but she then asks me if I want to go to the dean because honestly I'm really shaken, so I said yes, and we go straight there telling the dean of students what happened as well as the ADA counselor. They took the girl's statement and mine and discovered that this professor had pulled this shit for years but nobody wanted to get involved. 6 months later I hear that not only had the professor not gotten tenured, but he was fired and blacklisted from teaching at the collegiate level. I really appreciate the awards, but please don't spend real money on me. Give it to a women's shelter or ADA foundation. Now to the last story. Not even the CEO can do it. Okay, let's find out. This is from a long time ago, but I thought I would share. I bought a laptop from a large Fortune 500 company. We will call this company Bell Computers. After about 2 years, the hinges on the laptop broke, and it was almost, but not quite, out of warranty. I called the service center and they refused to replace it. I called, got the runaround, and each time they refused to fix it or even send me the part. Eventually, I was speaking with a low-level customer service manager, and I told them I would keep trying to escalate this until someone honored the warranty. Then he replied, "You can escalate this all the way to the CEO," and he wouldn't even do it. Well, it was at that moment it clicked. See, I used to work for Bell Computer Company. I didn't know the CEO, Mr. Bell, but while I was employed there he would occasionally send mass emails out to the staff. The email was also a combination of initials and names, so it was easy to remember. Alright then, let's play. I hung up the phone and drafted an email to Mr. Bell, CEO of Bell Computers, just like the helpful customer service rep said I should do. I wrote in the email about being a former employee, how the runaround with customer service was awful, how I just wanted the part to fix my laptop. The next day I got a phone call from Mr. Bell's executive assistant. I spoke with her for about 15 minutes about everything that happened. She took my info and my computer service number and said she would forward it to the VP of customer service. I got an email the following day saying it part had shipped. That's it for the video. Thanks for watching.